Alright, all you bulletproof handymen and women, welcome back. I think I've got a really good one for you here today. I've written this, I've rewritten it, I've started filming, I've stopped filming, gone back, started over, rewritten. Full transparency, it is almost 10 o'clock at night. I'm still not happy with this video, but I think I've got it pinned down. I think I've got something super valuable for y'all. So, forgive me if I'm a little slow, forgive me if I look a little tired. I do have my coffee. So the subject of today's video, the goal of today's video, is to give you 10 questions that you can ask yourself. And know that the answer to those questions is going to answer a bigger question for you, which is, am I a handyman or am I a handyman business? Because if you're here on this channel, I want your goal to be a handyman business. Anybody can be a handyman. Everybody on the face of this earth who knows how to do any small task can go charge a little bit of money to do that task, but that doesn't make them a business. And we're here to build bulletproof handyman businesses. We're here to build generational wealth. We're here to build something that we can pass down to our children, something that will provide for our family. So the answers to these questions are very important. I'm going to try to slow down on these so I don't miss too much, but I also don't want to go too deep on them either. I want to make them very sharp and concise, and if y'all want to give me some feedback, please do. You can put it in the comments. You can email me at bulletproofhandymanbusiness@gmail.com, but let me know how I'm doing on this. I want to make this super clear, super concise, and I want this to be something you can actually use daily to ask yourself these questions and know that the answer to them means a lot about where you're at. So, question number one. These are in no particular order, by the way. Question number one is, are you taking guidance or are you giving it? And the difference between these, I think the best way to put this is, I want you to put yourself in a property manager's shoes. And let's say that you have two identical jobs on two opposite ends of town, and you've got two different handymen that you've put on both jobs. One handyman calls you and says, hey, I opened up the wall, I looked at the plumbing, and here's what I found. What do you want me to do next? The other handyman calls you and says, hey, I opened up the wall, I took a look at the plumbing, and here's what I found, and here's what we need to do next. The difference between those two is one is asking you for guidance and one is giving you guidance. This portrays giving guidance, portrays confidence, it portrays knowledge, but more importantly, it portrays the idea that this handyman has taken ownership in the maintenance of this house. He considers the maintenance of this house to be part of his responsibility in life. So he's not acting like an employee who's just saying, I did what you wanted me to do, what do you want me to do next? He's acting like he's the manager of your maintenance division for your large property management company. And if you're that property manager, which one do you want to send this guy out? Which one of these guys do you want to send out on a big job, on a complex job, on a job that's on a very valuable property, or a high visibility job where important people are going to be very aware of how it's going? Are you going to send the guy who calls you asking, what do I do next? Or are you going to call the guy who says, here's what we need to do to get this problem taken care of? So take ownership, but ask yourself this question constantly. Every time you talk to a property manager, when you're done with that conversation, ask yourself, did I just give guidance or did I just take guidance? Before you make that phone call, go over it in your head and see if you can find a way before you make the call. Because I'm sure you're capable, and I'm sure you do know what you're doing, and I'm sure you do have confidence in your skills. But before you make the call, ask yourself, if I'm giving guidance, what am I going to be saying? Am I going to be asking for guidance? And if the conversation that you're imagining involves you asking for guidance when it's not necessary, when you should be able to figure it out, then reword it in your head. Think that through before you make that phone call and start asking yourself all the time, did I give guidance or did I take guidance? So, number two. How many new skills have you acquired in the last 6 months? Now I'm going to say this. You can read this two different ways. Or rather, you can acquire skills in two different ways. You can read this question as how many skills did you personally acquire in the last 6 months? Or you can say, how many skills did my business acquire in the last 6 months? And both, the answers to both does matter. If you're the only guy working for your company, or if it's you plus like one or two other guys that pitch in sometimes, you personally should be adding skills in the last 6 months, unless your other guy or your other couple guys that you're working with, unless they literally make it so that you've covered every single skill, then you should be acquiring new skills. And the reason for that is, again, let's take it from the property manager's perspective. Let's say you're a property manager and you hire Steve as a handyman. And Steve says, hey, here's the list of things I can do. I can do these 13 things for you. And then 2 years later, Steve can still only do those every time you have a screen that needs to be replaced on a window because it got all broken. If 2 years later you still can't call Steve for that screen, is Steve really a handyman business, or is Steve just a guy you know who knows how to fix some stuff? I hope I'm being super clear on this, because it's not that you don't need to know how to do everything, but there should be growth. There should be, over time, your business should become more and more capable. And if it's not, if you ask yourself the question, how many skills have I personally acquired that I didn't previously have in the last 6 months? If you ask that of yourself, and the answer is 0, if you've been turning down the same types of jobs for that long, that means you're not trying. That means that you haven't taken, your job is to take care of these houses. Your job is to make sure your property manager doesn't have to worry about anything. You want to be the one-stop shop, the go-to source for as many things as possible. Because you want your property manager to receive a request for something to be done to one of her rental houses, and you want her to just know, without question. You don't want her to have to think or pull out a list and go, let's see, can Steve do... Nope, Steve can't do this. Okay, who do I have that can do this? I've got 5 other guys, and each of them can only do 8 things each. That's not what you want. What you want is to be that business that over the course of your relationship with these property managers, they come to just assume that they can send you every single job they have, and then you'll let them know every now and then if one comes up that's just not something that's within your skill set. And then how many your business acquires, that's the other thing, is, look, if you're a business and you need to provide the service of taking care of these homes, if you've taken ownership in the idea that those homes are yours and you're keeping them together so that your property managers don't have to, if you've really internalized that, if it's skills that you can't learn or that you don't want to learn or for whatever reason just aren't up your alley, and I understand, I'm 42 years old. There's skills I'm not going to learn. My skill that I'm learning now is how to run a business. I'm getting better at it every day. I'm still not great. I'm still not perfect, but I'm always improving. And that's the new skill I'm learning. And that's another skill you'll be learning as well. But unless you're 40-something years old and you've just decided, like, hey, it's time for me to just focus on the business side, then what you can do, if you're in my position, if you're not personally learning the new skills, is it's now your responsibility to learn the skill of acquiring subcontractors who can take care of that work for you. But the bottom line is your business should have acquired many, many, many new skills in the last 6 months, unless you just have them all, unless you do everything. That's not likely, so ask yourself frequently, how many new skills have I acquired lately? And if the answer is 0, you need to get on the ball and pick up a few new skills. Go back in your messages and figure out what you've been declining, and then pick one of them. Just pick one, guys. You can do anything. You're all fully grown men, some of you women, but this channel's like 98% men watching. You're all grown men. There's no reason in the world that you can't get on YouTube and look up how to do any job that you could do to a house and then learn how to do it. You're capable, and if you're not doing it, you're choosing not to do it. And if you're choosing not to do it, you're choosing to be a handyman and not to be a business. Next, how many clients do you have? Now this is a very tricky one, because I answered this question incorrectly for about the first 6 months of my business. The correct answer to this question should definitely be more than 1. I would set a minimum. If I had to, I would say you need to have a minimum of 3. But your business, if you're a business, whether it's just you or you and some helpers, your business should have multiple clients. If you have one client, you're a subsidiary. You know, you're a contractor who is providing a service for the length of however long this contract is, and someday that contract expires. Unless you're with the biggest, best property management company in town, and unless you have a written guarantee that they're going to send you work till the day you die, you need to assume that someday, at some point in time, you're going to lose some clients. And this doesn't have to be your fault. It doesn't mean you're not a good handyman. A bunch of things can cause this. One reason is because that company could just get sold to a newer, bigger, better company. And if that company gets sold, you may not go with it. The property managers that start managing all those homes once that company gets sold, they may have their own guys, and they probably do have their own guys. So you could lose all of your work if that's your only property manager. Another thing that could happen, a lot of these property management companies at some point will take their maintenance in-house. They'll look at what they're paying you, oddly enough. What they're going to do is they're going to see what they're paying you and what they're paying other handymen, and it's a lot of money. And somebody's going to go, hey, if we hire 3 guys at $16 an hour and have Jack over here kind of manage them, then we don't have to pay these handymen anymore. In fact, we could pay these handymen, and then we could charge for the work that they did to the clients that we're renting these houses for. We could have that profit instead of the handyman. It is very common. I believe it's very unethical. A lot of property management companies will actually advertise that they don't do in-house maintenance because it's a conflict of interest, and in some states you're not even allowed to. But you should have more than one client. Now the caveat here is, and here's where I made my mistake. When I first started out, I got on right off the bat. As soon as I dove into the property management side, I got super lucky and I got on with, I think, the biggest property management company here in Tucson. Or at least they're the biggest in terms of maybe total revenue, because they're both property management and realtors, generally speaking, and they're property management and realtors on both commercial and residential side, and they do building. They build new properties. So they were huge, and they had so much work for me. It was amazing. They didn't complain about my prices, and yes, my prices were lower than they are today, but they weren't low. My prices were pretty good prices. They're about where most of y'all should be starting out at if you haven't started yet. They didn't complain about my prices. I was working about 4 jobs a day, every single day. I was backed up by like 30 to 40 jobs all the time, and by backed up I just mean scheduled out. I always had about 40 open jobs. I'd invoice 4 today. I'd also receive 4 new ones today. I'd schedule them 3 weeks out. Tomorrow I'd finish 4, invoice 4, receive 4 more. Beautiful system. But the problem was they were my only client, and I'm going to tell you a really short story about what happened. Number one, they asked me to, if I was interested in bringing my LLC in under their umbrella corporation. And I don't know if they wanted to purchase my LLC or exactly how that was going to work, but they wanted my LLC to be brought in under their umbrella corporation. They offered to give me a bunch of money to help build an inventory and do a few other things that I had told them I was looking forward to doing and hoping to do that was going to make me more efficient. Super impressed with my work, but I knew my value. And my answer to them was, right off the bat, before anything else, I said, the first thing we need to talk about is money. I know where I can take this. And if you want me to not take it there and instead run your entire maintenance division for your rentals, if you want to do that, I'm going to have to be getting paid, not what I'm getting paid today, but where I know I can be in a year or two. And I'm there now. I got to where I knew I could be in a year or two. And they weren't happy with that. They essentially just didn't reply back on that particular subject. The subject just got dropped, but I could tell a difference just in tone when I spoke with them. So then, a couple weeks later, they were buying, because they're huge, they were buying a smaller property management company here in town. And for that sale to close, everything has to be in a certain condition. So before that sale closed, they needed one move out done. And they told the owner of the company they were buying, they gave him my contact info and said, hey, this guy's really good. Send this to him. He'll get you an estimate and he'll get it knocked out. And even if he doesn't have it knocked out, since he's our guy, we'll know that he is knocking it out and what the price is. And we know he'll hold to the estimate and we can close the sale. So the guy sent me the work order. I went to the house, I did an inspection, and I wrote an estimate. And then he called me the next day, and he said, hey, I want to go over this estimate with you real quick. And he went item by item and said, I feel like this should take about this long, and material should cost about this much. He knew his stuff. And I agreed with him for the most part all the way through. Most of his times were pretty close to mine. Most of his materials pricing was pretty close to accurate. And at the end he said, well, I guess what I'm not understanding then is it looks like you're trying to make about $100 an hour. And I said, yeah, that sounds about right. I'm trying to make about $100 an hour. And he said, well, you know, I've got guys that do work for me that have like an $80 trip fee, and then I pay them about $35 or $45 an hour. And I said, well, I'm sorry, you know, if you want to hire those guys, I'm definitely not going to be offended because I'm very busy, but these are my rates, and I typically don't leave the house unless it's to make $100 an hour. And he just got all offended and said, okay, well, I'm going to call somebody else. Well, the next day, I didn't hear from that property management company, not the little one they were buying. I didn't hear from the bigger property management company the next day, which is weird because I tend to get 3 or 4 or 5 jobs a day from them pretty consistently. And I didn't think much of it. You know, I thought, well, maybe Shannon's out sick, you know, and she's going to send me 8 jobs tomorrow or something. But then I noticed the next day I didn't hear anything, and I texted the person who's in charge of sending out all the work and said, hey, I just haven't heard anything from you. Want to make sure everything's okay. Didn't get a reply. Next day I messaged again. Didn't get a reply. Next day I tried to call her on her work phone. Didn't get a reply. Then I tried to call her on her cell phone. No answer. No reply. Called a different person at the company who I don't even know what their job was, but I had met her a couple times in the office. You know, she knew about my twins. She was always asking about them, wanting to see pictures when I stopped by. She didn't answer. This company straight up ghosted me, like overnight. They were 95% of my business. I had one other property manager, very small place, that gave me about a job a week, you know, because that's all they had. They had 14 houses, so I had about a job a week at best from them. And all of a sudden, I had no business, guys, none, because I had the answer to the question, how many clients do you have, for me at that time was 1. And I had to get my ass in gear, and I had to find new property managers, and I had to do it now because the way my finances worked, and even today the way my finances work, I need to be busy all the time. I need to have money. I work 7 days a week. The only time I take time off is when my wife lets me know that I need to take time off for school functions or family functions or things like that. So the answer to how many clients I had was 1, and then it was 0. Or technically it was 1, but the other one was like a job a week. So the answer became 0, and that was scary. I could have failed. I could have, had I not found new property managers really fast, immediately, and had they not been the right property managers that paid very quickly. Had that not happened, I'd have gone back to Bombardier. I'd be in an ugly, hot, humid warehouse down in the belly of a plane running wires, hating my life right now, if I hadn't found new managers. So do yourself a favor, guys. If you're with a big company like that and they're keeping you so busy that you can't even take on new property managers, start thinking of some solutions, whether that means hiring some people, getting some helpers so that it opens up the time. That may mean, in fact, we'll move on to the next one in a minute, but getting some software to make you more efficient to open up more time. You need to figure out a way to diversify, because if you lose your one property manager, you could go under. So be very careful with that. Ask yourself that question, how many do you have? And if that answer is 1, you need more, I promise you. I want you to succeed. I don't want to see you fail because you were doing so well with 1 that when they went away there was just nothing left. So, number 4, no particular order. Is your business run on software or paper and spreadsheets? This one matters for this reason. Your property managers are your clients, and I've told the story. I'm going to make another video on it probably soon, but the story of property management and how the whole system works. You're a problem solver. What they need and what they want is somebody to send work to and then receive an invoice. And they want to feel like you know what you're doing. They want to feel like you're a legitimate business. Believe it or not, they don't want Steve. They want a business. And if you're running your stuff on spreadsheets and paper, if their invoices are like typed up on a Word document, or they're obviously from some like template from the internet, and they're copied and pasted, and they look like they've been run off on a fax machine. I've had property managers tell me that the guy that I replaced, that his invoices were, he had a receipt book, and he would write out just in pencil on a receipt, in a receipt book, if you remember those, if you're old enough. He would write it out in pencil, take a picture of it, and text it to her, and that was his invoice. Do you think she treated him like a business, or do you think she treated him like a handyman? Because I can tell you, because she told me, she treated him like an employee. When you have good software, and I know you guys know that I use Jobber, I promote Jobber, and I'm sponsored by Jobber, and if you've watched my video long, you know for a fact it's because I honestly, truly, I run my whole business with them, and I do believe that they're doing everything they can, more than anybody else, to try to make the perfect software for us. But it doesn't have to be Jobber. There are other softwares out there that you can use. I highly recommend getting a free trial of any of them that you think might fit your business. But when they receive communications from you, when they receive invoices, estimates, all of it, receipts, they need to have an interface that they're familiar with, that represents you, that they know how to use, and that is uniform, that is standardized over time. And they need to feel like it's coming from a business. Because if you're writing stuff out, or if you're typing it up on a Word document, if you don't appear to have a process and a system in place for running your business, it's just going to affect the way they view you. And that's what all of these comes down to. All of these lines that I'm giving you, in the end, the question is, how does your client, and your client, that's it, that's your client. Your clients are the people who keep you in business. Without them, your business does not exist. So the question is, how does it make them view you? How does it make them treat you? How does it make them interact with you? And having good software, professional software, and some uniformity about how they receive all of these things and how they make their payments and stuff, all of that boils down to them viewing you as a business, which means they'll treat you like a business. Next, number 5. Do your clients track your scheduling and your billing? How involved are they with your schedule and with your invoices and your billing system? And the reason this matters is because if they're tracking you, if they know where you're at, they're feeling some sort of ownership over you. Now, don't get me wrong, I let my property managers know. For example, when I receive a job, I schedule it as soon as I can, within 24 hours typically. That's my policy. When I get it scheduled, I do send them an email, or I go into their software. There's different ones. But I let them know one way or another that the job is scheduled, and I give them a date and time that it's scheduled for. But that's all they get from me. I don't let them know when I'm on the way. I don't let them know what's on the schedule for tomorrow. They don't ask me if I'm on the way or what I'm doing tomorrow. They don't expect that they have any say in my schedule. But it's a very easy trap to fall into, and I've seen it many times personally from property managers who have told me, this one girl that I just told you about, she's literally told me that her handyman before me, she treated him like an employee, and she did it because she knew she could. He didn't have self-confidence. He was way too eager. He didn't appear to know what he was doing. He was doing his, he had no software. He's writing stuff out on physical receipts. He was going to the office sometimes just to hang out, to wait for the phone to ring or for an email to come in to request something to get done so he could go do it. But she knew where he was all the time, and she told him what to do, and she told him when to do it, and she told him how to do it. And it's an easy trap if you're just starting out and you're not too busy. You want to pour a whole lot into one client, and you really should. I mean, you should give them everything that you can give them, especially when you're first starting out. You want to cement that relationship in. But what you don't want is for them to know all the time where you're at, what you're doing. If you say, hey, I'm going to be at this job on Monday, 9 a.m., if they're calling you on Monday at 9:30 and saying, hey, I was just checking on that job, how's it going, let me know when you're done, and then you let them know at 11 when you're done, and then you're on an hourly rate because they're involved with your billing too, and you for some reason decided you should tell them an hourly rate. So now it's $80 an hour from 9 to 11, so it's 2 hours, and you send them a bill for $250, and then they ask, hey, I thought you were only there for 2 hours and you charge $80 an hour, so that should have been $160. That's a position you can find yourself in if you're not very, very careful. What I do is all of my clients, and I'm going to tell you off the bat, be honest, I was turned down by many property management companies for no reason other than I wouldn't give them an hourly rate. Literally, that's the reason. They said we need an hourly rate. They had a spreadsheet and they had to put it in there. But the reason they want the hourly rate is because they want to check and make sure you're billing them fairly. To me, giving an hourly rate and then them tracking where you're at and what you're doing, you're an employee. You're a well-paid employee. But at that point, you're an employee. You're not a business who's free to do business as you please. You're not free to set your policies, your procedures. You're not free to make your schedule. You're not free to do favors for a very long-term client, that's treated you extremely well and paid you extremely well and has asked you for the first favor ever. You can't say yes because you have a boss, because they're going to complain and say, hey, no, you said you were going to be here. We need you to be here. This is your company. This is your business. If it's a business, if you're a business and not a handyman, then the business can run its business the way that they see fit. And if your clients are tracking your time, your schedule, your billing, you're not in a position where you can run your business as you see fit. So ask yourself that question right now. Think about if you're running your business already. Ask yourself, do they know where I'm at? Do they know what I'm doing? Do they know how long I was there? Are they expecting certain rates? Are they going to be able to get in touch with me and tell me that I overcharged because they know where I was at and what I was doing? This is your business, guys. Make sure it is a business. And if you're not in that position now, you don't have to change it tomorrow. You don't have to call them up and make a big spiel about like, hey, from now on, I run my own business. You don't have to do that. My suggestion would be that if the answer to this question is yes, they are too involved, just go find some new property managers. Don't leave this one until you find the other ones. Go get some new property managers, preferably smaller companies so you can start out small so they don't inundate you right off the bat, because you may not want to burn bridges with this one. What may end up happening is when you find these other property managers, one day in a conversation, you just casually say, well, I've got another job I've got to do for that property manager this Friday at lunchtime, so I'm not going to be able to do that for you. I've already scheduled the other one. And yes, at that point, you will be in a position where there now may be an uncomfortable moment, but your property manager is going to have to make a decision now. Do I work with this guy the way that he is now, or do I let him go and then put myself in a position where now I don't have a handyman? And maybe she's going to go look for a replacement just like you've been looking for a replacement for her. But the idea is you want to move yourself into a position where the clients that you do have view you as a business, treat you as a business, and no business. I've never called any business that did any work for me, like any service business. I've never called the owner of an HVAC company and said, hey, when did that guy leave the warehouse? Because y'all are supposed to be charging me $80 an hour, and he was here for an hour and 45 minutes, and I prorated it into 15-minute blocks, and unless he drove an hour and a half, I think he overcharged me by $48. That doesn't happen. Nobody treats businesses that way. You need to be a business and not just a handyman so that you don't get treated that way. So over time, I want you to just ask yourself, how involved are your clients in how you run your business? The answer should be they're not involved at all in how you run your business. To the extent that you can find a way that they are involved, you need to work on getting rid of that particular way. Next, number 6. What exactly does tomorrow look like? And I mean, what exactly does tomorrow look like? So I'm going to tell you what tomorrow looks like for me. I'm not going to give you a rundown of all my jobs. But tomorrow morning, I have a list already made. It's written down on paper I know all the materials that I'm going to need for tomorrow. I also know what materials of those I already have, and I know what I'm going to need to pick up at Home Depot on my way out. I know what time I need to leave the house in order to make it to Home Depot in time to do my shopping at Home Depot, specifically on a Saturday, because I'm going to be there on a Saturday, and I know that the mornings on Saturdays at Home Depot at the Pro checkout line are going to be longer lines. I know how far away that first job is, so I know how long my drive time is going to be. I know what time I'm going to arrive. I have a very good idea of what I think I'm going to be doing, because what I know for sure is the work order I received, what it said was wrong. But what else I know is I have pictures from the tenant, because I planned in advance and I had them send me pictures. I also spoke to them on the phone and had them describe the job to me, and I asked them a couple clarifying questions, because I know from experience that a lot of tenants and property managers, they're going to get a lot of their nomenclature wrong. They're going to call things that are different than what they really are. They're not going to describe it well. And I know that I might show up unprepared because I didn't ask a few extra questions and get those pictures. So I know what I'm going to pick up. I know when I'm going to arrive. I have a very good idea of what I think the issue is going to be when I get there. I know how long that's going to take me. I know when I need to finish up by so that I can get to the next job in time. And I know when I need to be looking at my watch and making a phone call to the next tenant. I know what time I need to be thinking about that in order for that tenant to have had at least 1 hour notice if I'm not going to show up within the 1 hour window that I promised to show up in. I also have the work orders printed out, and I have the phone number for the tenant on the work order, so that if I do need to call them, I don't have to take 10 minutes scrolling through my phone, reading over text messages and emails, trying to figure out what that tenant's phone number is. I'm prepared for tomorrow. I know exactly what the day should look like, and yes, generally your days by the end of the day is not going to look like what you thought it would look like before you started your day, but you should be going into every day really knowing in detail how you expect that day to go. Because you're a business. You're not a handyman. A business does not schedule a bunch of people and hope they're going to make it. A business doesn't show up not quite sure what it is they're going to find or what it is they're looking for. A business shows up prepared, and a business takes care of what they need to take care of, and then they get out of there. So, if you know what tomorrow looks like, and yes, this is Friday, and most of y'all I would bet aren't working weekends, and that's not an insult, maybe you just don't need to. But right now, for me, success is the only option, which means I work weekends. It means I put everything I can into this business until I grow it big enough that I can afford to take a little bit of time off for myself. But otherwise, tomorrow being a Saturday is meaningless to me. I know what it looks like because I'm going to be working. So wait until Sunday night and ask yourself, what does Monday look like? Can you really answer that question? And if you can't, you need to start getting in the habit of being able to answer that question before you go to bed every night. You should know what tomorrow looks like. And if you don't, fine. But you're Steve. You're a handyman. You're just a guy out there trying to make some money. And if you do know what tomorrow looks like, congratulations. You're one step closer to being a business rather than a handyman. Moving on, we've only got 4 left now. It is 10:23 p.m. I cannot wait to go just crawl into bed with my wife. Alright, so, how comfortable, I turned my page over actually, here we go. Do you know your numbers? This is a super important question because the answer to this, it doesn't matter what the answer to the question is. It doesn't matter what your numbers are so much as it matters, do you know the answer to the question? Do you know your numbers? How many miles per day on average do you drive? How many miles per gallon does your vehicle get? And therefore, how much money per day on average is allocated towards gas? Is your insurance coverage for your business, does it currently cover the amount of volume of work and revenue that your business is generating today? What's up with your accountant? When is the next thing that you need to be doing with your accountant? What do you need to get him? All of your numbers matter. What are you making per hour? Not what are you charging, not what are you invoicing per hour for your labor on the job, but what are you actually making after you take all of those expenses out? How much money is getting put into tools versus materials? What percentage of the revenue that you bring in, what percentage of that revenue is getting set aside for taxes and whatnot? What are your numbers? This is going to sound super silly, but one suggestion I have, because you need to know the answer to this question. If you don't know the answer to the question, and even more so, if you don't even know what numbers it is you should know, do yourself a favor, go binge watch. Don't even watch. Get it on YouTube or something like that, and while you're working throughout the day, put some headphones in and binge a little Shark Tank. Now, you don't need to be like a startup in Shark Tank. The goal is not to just blow up overnight. That's not how you create something bulletproof and sturdy and solid that's going to last for generations. But if you listen to Shark Tank, you're going to find all the sharks asking the same questions over and over again. What's your customer acquisition costs? What's this? What's that? And they expect these people to know the answers. And the reason they expect it is because, honestly, you're not legit running a business if you don't know the answers to the questions about your numbers. If you don't know those answers, it's just not a business. If it's a business has to know these answers, because a business isn't trying to make some money today. A business isn't trying to just pay rent this month. A business is is a machine that needs to operate, and it needs to operate correctly and efficiently over a long course of time. It's going to need regularly scheduled maintenance done to this machine. It's going to need inputs. It's going to have outputs. It's going to have waste products. It's going to need people paying attention to it and making sure that it keeps running. And you can't be paying attention to it and making sure that it keeps running, especially for generations, if you don't even know how it works, because that's what your numbers are. Your numbers are how your business works. So ask yourself right now, while you're watching this video, do you know your numbers? What numbers do you know, and what numbers don't you know? Do you know what numbers you should know? And if this just seems mostly foreign to you, if all you know is I'm getting out there and I'm working hard and I'm making money and supporting my family, congratulations to you. I have all the respect in the world for everybody, every man in this country who wakes up every morning and gets out there and does what he needs to do to keep his family safe and fed and provided for. I respect you 100%. There's no disrespect. But you're not a business yet if you don't know what your numbers are. Moving on to the next one. Really important one here, actually, guys. This is probably, it's my pet peeve, honestly. It's the thing that just makes me go, this is why we all have a bad name. How often do you cut corners? I'm going to tell you, you know the answer to this question, what it should be. The answer to the question, how often do you cut corners? It should be 0. Businesses don't cut corners. Businesses fire employees who cut corners, but businesses themselves do not cut corners. So are you a business or not? I'm not even going to go into depth on this because y'all know what I'm talking about. We all know how to fill in a bigger crack than what we should have left somewhere with some caulk and paint over it. We all know how to stuff toilet paper in a hole and put some whiteout over it or something. There's a million hacks that you can do. Half of them you see on like TikTok and YouTube and stuff, and it's like people are bragging about them, and there's nothing to brag about there. The answer to the question, how often do you cut corners, it better be 0. And if the answer is not 0, you're not a business. You don't need to take yourself seriously. You're who's giving everybody a bad name. Stop cutting corners. If you know something isn't solid, if you know something isn't 100%, if you know something is not exactly what you would expect of any professional that you hired to do the job that you're currently doing, if the answer is that you're cutting any corners at all, you're not a business, and you're not going to be until you stop. So if you have been, forgive yourself. Fine. You know, I'm not about grudges, but if you have been, stop it, and stop it now. The very next time you think to yourself, if I do this, I can get out of here, and it's going to be fine for a while. Just don't do it. You're not a business, and you should not respect yourself as long as you're still cutting corners. You're a joke, or at least you're running your business as a joke. I don't want to insult people, but you're running your business as if your business is a joke. If you're cutting corners, that is not how we do things, and that's what gives us a bad name. The only thing I will say is thank you for cutting corners, because I'm coming behind you and I'm grabbing up that property manager, and you've made it that much easier when that property manager found out about a corner you cut 2 months ago. Moving on. I'm going fully positive now. I don't like getting emotional about that, but stop cutting corners, guys. That's not how it's done. Second to the last one. Very important also. How comfortable are your clients asking you for favors? How comfortable are they? It's not do they ask you for favors. They all will. They will all be in a position someday, in fact, where they need you to do them a favor. And that puts you in a position to get owed a favor, to get a little bit of loyalty, to show a little bit of camaraderie with them, and to say, hey, we're all in this together. But how comfortable are they when they ask? I've had property managers, and it took some time to train them. I've had property managers, many of them, who just want to call me. One called me once and literally was like, hey, there's a place out not too far from the end of town that you live on. And she goes on to explain this report that the tenant gave, and she said, do you think you could go out there and just look at it real quick for me? And I kind of got what she was saying right away. My brain understood she meant without invoicing. And I simply said, yeah, I can go out there, but I'm going to have to charge my trip fee. So if I can just fix it while I'm there, do you want me to go ahead and fix it so you're not paying another trip fee? And she said, well, I just want to find out what's going on first before I make a work order. And I said, okay, well, I can go out there, but I do have to invoice my trip fee. And she's like, really? It's right out by where you live. Can you I just want you to, don't put a lot of time into it. Just swing through and take a look and just let me know if it is what she's saying it is. And I had to reiterate to her again, I need to be billable, and so do you. So property managers, I'm going to give you a good example of a favor that you can do for a property manager that is going to make them more loyal to you, that's going to help your business, but they should be uncomfortable asking you. And that's to lower your price. When you have a move out especially, oftentimes what happens is a homeowner gets the deposit from the tenant when they move into a place. And ideally, they keep that deposit. Ideally, your property management company honestly should have a policy that they keep that deposit and that they have it ready to pay out either back to the tenant or to the handyman or to the landscaper or the cleaner when it's time to renew the property for the next tenant. But you're going to have, ultimately, this is going to happen, a homeowner's going to spend the deposit, tenant's going to move out, work's going to need to get done, and that homeowner is literally just not going to have the money to pay you to do the work you need to do. And if your property manager has a decent relationship with you and at least views you as being a nice, reasonable person, they may come to you and ask you and just say, hey, we're on a really tight budget on this one. We've only got like $425 to turn this property over. And the owner wants to know if you can get all this done for that price. And you look at it and you're just like, dude, this is $780 worth of work. But you have the opportunity, this one time and this one time only, that you can say to your property manager, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I've looked the list over. Instead of this, I can do this, and instead of this, I can do this. And I can get the price down to where it would be $550, which is only however many dollars away from the original price that the homeowner was hoping for. You could say, and then I'll discount that. I'll do it for that price. I just want you to do me a favor and remember this in the future, and when you have the opportunity to send me a super easy job that I can bill my trip fee for, send me that super easy job, make a habit out of rubbing my back and I can rub yours, essentially. But you don't put it that way. You just say, look, man, I'm going to take care of you either way. You don't say, I'll do this if you agree to do this. You just say, hey, I'm going to take care of you. I figured out how to make it cheaper. I'm going to use some different materials. I'm going to do it a couple different ways, but I can get this place ready for you. I'll discount it by this much so we can get in just under the budget. And you just do me a favor and just remember, I care about you guys. I want you to succeed because when you succeed, I succeed. Tell your property manager that. Literally tell them When you succeed, I succeed, so I want you to succeed, and I'm going to do this. But back to the question, and the question is, how comfortable are they asking? If they're super comfortable asking, they don't view you as a business. And again, we go back to, if you hire a professional to come to your house, you don't ask those professionals to do you favors. You don't ask the AC guy who shows up to fix your air conditioner when he says at the end, or say a septic tank pumping, they tell you it's going to be $650. They come out, they pump your septic tank. Do you go to them when they're done and say, hey man, you think we could discount this to like 400? If you're comfortable asking that, there's something wrong. If you're comfortable asking that, you don't view that guy who pumped your septic tank as a business. And the reason may be because he doesn't act like a business. Maybe he answered the phone going, hello? Maybe he talked real loud and was like, yeah, no, I could probably do it for like $700. I could be out there tomorrow at lunchtime. That's the kind of guy that you're asking for the discount from. But the guy who answers the phone and says, Bradley's Pumping Service, yeah, our next opening on our schedule is going to be Wednesday. We can arrive between 3 and 4 p.m. It's going to take us about 2 hours. By the way, if you dig up the lid, then it's going to cost this much. If you want us to dig up the lid, we do charge an extra $125 for that, but we'll be there. And then they call you when they're on their way over, and when they show up, the truck is clean, and the guy is clean, and he's got a company shirt on. You're not going to ask that guy for a discount, right? Because that's a business. Because you don't go asking businesses randomly to just discount their services, especially not frequently. So if your property managers are comfortable, if they appear to be comfortable asking you for discounts or asking you for favors, something's wrong and they're not viewing you as a business. And you may want to go over this video again and look at each of these lines and ask yourself each of these questions and try to get yourself into a position to where in the future, as time goes by, more and more and more of these questions are answered in the way that makes you say, okay, yeah, I'm more of a business now, because they shouldn't be comfortable asking you for favors. And then finally, last but not least, and this one actually is number one, how often do you lie to your clients? How often do you lie to your property managers? And this takes a couple different routes. Number one, don't lie to them. They need to trust you. They literally need to trust you. They want to be able to send you out on the job and know for a fact that everything that's going to happen from the point that they send you that job is part of a policy, it's part of a procedure, it's structured, it's going to go down in a certain way. The tenant's going to be taken care of, the home is going to be taken care of, and things are going to run smoothly. And if you're lying to them, they no longer can believe any of those things about you, and you are not going to be anywhere near the top of their list for sending work to. They're now going to view you as a guy who they can't trust. Not only as a business they can't trust, but as a person that they can't trust. You're going to lose the status of business the instant that you lie to them. And another thing is, my little note that I wrote down here, is businesses don't wake up late. One of the most annoying things, and I've had this with a few guys who've worked with me, and they know it, and I know it, and they know I know it, and I know they know that I know that they know that I know it. Businesses don't wake up late. Businesses show up on time every time. And if they don't, there's a reason, and there's a super legit reason. But if you're lying to your property managers, or your tenants for that matter, but especially your property managers, if you're having to say, hey, here's a great example right here, actually. Let's say, this is probably why I wrote down businesses don't wake up late. Let's say you're not a professional and you don't treat yourself like a business, you treat yourself like a person. So you sleep in Wednesday, you hit the snooze button, you hit the snooze button again. You know if you hit it a third time, it's going to shut the alarm off entirely. But you're tired. You're pretty sure that property manager needs you anyways, and she's going to keep sending you work. And even if this tenant complains, it's not the end of the world. And you hit that snooze button a third time, and you don't show up to the job. And then you call your property manager later. You call the tenant first and you say, hey, sorry, I had emergency such and such, and yeah, the truck wouldn't start, and some flame shot out of the carburetor, and I just didn't feel safe driving it, and I'm working on, and you just make up a whole bullshit story for your tenant, and then you call your property manager, and you say, hey, by the way, I just want to let you know the tenant canceled this morning, said they needed to reschedule, because you don't want to admit to your property manager, number one, you don't want to admit you slept in late, and number two, you definitely don't want to admit that you lied to the tenant about it too. So you make up some BS to your property manager and just, hey, right off the bat, just so you know, you're not going to see an invoice for that job today. The tenant had to reschedule because something was going on. Their car was broke down or something. Boy, let me tell you something. You lie to your property manager like that, you're not getting any more work. She will be on the ball looking for a new maintenance guy right away. She will be looking for a new handyman, a new company, a new anybody to take your place. Once you lie to them, you have broken that trust, and that trust is not going to be regained because now they are never going to be quite certain that when you tell them something went wrong and it's going to cost extra money, when you tell them you couldn't complete a job by a certain time because of whatever reasons you give them, there's always going to be that caveat in the back of their mind going, well, if he's telling the truth anyways. So don't lie to them. If the answer to this question is that you lie to them, if the answer is even one, that's too many. And again, not here to judge. You don't need to hold grudges. Don't worry about the past. If the answer to that question is that you've been lying at all, ever, just stop. Just stop. And the easiest way is don't sleep in late, because businesses don't sleep in late. Treat yourself like a business and understand that every single step you take, every word that comes out of your mouth, everything you do is not just you. It's not a guy saying some words. It's a business. And the business has to behave like a business if it wants to be treated like a business. And when you're treated like a business, that's when you have the power. That's when you're doing them a favor. They're coming to you asking you, will you please take care of things for me? So I want you guys to take some ownership. I want you to acquire some skills. I want you to get more clients if you only have one. I want you to get some kind of software, whether it's Jobber or anything else. The link's in my description for Jobber if you want to try it out. And if you don't want to do that, get some kind of software that's a CRM software for managing your business and your clients. Stop letting your clients be involved in your scheduling and in your billing. Know what tomorrow's going to look like. Start figuring out what your numbers are if you don't already know them, and start getting them memorized and start watching them change and start making an effort to change them in a positive direction. Stop cutting corners. If you're cutting any, don't cut your corners ever. Do every job solid, long term, so that your property manager at some point just goes, my God, I don't think Ray's ever had a job come back. They're all good. And put yourself in the position where your clients are not comfortable asking for favors. And all this means is just learning to say no. It just means you have policies, you have procedures, you have a way you do things, and they are free to purchase that service. They are free to politely request that they can talk to you about it and maybe come to an agreement on some things, but they shouldn't be comfortable asking you for favors. And biggest, stop lying to them. Do not lie to them. It is better to tell them that you messed up. It is better to tell them, I failed to do what I should have done today, and I'm sorry that I failed at it, and I will not fail at it again. That is better than a lie. Just tell them when you mess up like that. And the last thing, guys, is if you're working tomorrow, which is Saturday, actually, I'm posting this in the middle of the night, basically, on a Friday night. But whatever the next day is you're going to be working, I want you to go to bed knowing what you're going to do the next day. And the next day I want you to wake up, and I want you, when you wake up, be a business. Be it, like, internally. I want you to wake up, and to the extent that you know how to act, that you know how to pretend, I want you to wake up telling yourself, I'm a business. And go through this list in your head while you're taking your shower. Go over your day and say, today I'm a business. Today I'm not Steve. Today I am a business, and I'm going to behave like one all day. And then the next day do that again. And the next day do that again. And find out how great things can get, how great your relationships with your clients can get, how solid they can get. Find out how much respect starts coming your way when you start behaving like a business. I really hope this has helped y'all out. I really do. I spent a lot of time coming up with these. I feel that these 10 things will change your business, unless they're all already here. I mean, a lot of y'all are here. I'm sure there's people watching this channel that are. But focus on these 10 things, and it is going to be nearly impossible for you to fail. I promise you this. So, I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Give me any feedback that you want to give me, please. I love feedback. Don't ever feel like you shouldn't be posting things in the comments or whatever because you're worried you're stepping on my toes. Everybody's got important things that they can contribute to this conversation. But I hope y'all are out there killing it. I am going to go crawl in that bed with my wife and be the happiest man ever. And I will see y'all tomorrow.